Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Joe Tossi from TechTables.com, and you're listening to the Public Sector Show by Tech Tables. This podcast features human-centric stories from public sector CIOs, CISOs, and technology leaders across federal, state, city, county, and higher education. You'll gain valuable insights into current issues and challenges faced by top leaders. Through interviews, speaking engagements, live podcast tour events, we offer you a behind-the-mic look at the opportunities top leaders are seeing today. And to make sure you never miss an episode, head over to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and hit that follow button and leave a quick rating. Just tap the number of stars that you think this show deserves. Welcome to the Public Sector Show by Tech Tables. All returning guests with Kerrica and Tanya just came on the podcast. This is awesome. We'll link to that episode in the show notes. And Chris, let's kick off with you, a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go all the way down for those who don't know.
Chris Stewart, 23-year City of Austin employee, former U.S. Air Force veteran. Started with the city at the utility, electric utility, with desktop support, so doing some of the IT work. When you make a phone call, I was Johnny on the spot. Worked through a lot of IT roles around the city. Ended up being a CIO for Austin Water, so I got to do both sides of utilities. And then eventually CIO for the city of Austin, which was a really great way to end that career. For the past year, almost a year and a half, went to the private sector, which has been a really great transition. Now the Chief Technology Officer for Freeit Data Solutions. So I get to work with great leaders like this, really aligning their IT strategies, their IT visions to technology solutions that work for their communities. It's been really great.
Love that. And we're going to link to episode 170 with Chris from Big Sky, Montana, the Airbnb experience. That was incredible.
Great.
We had a bear come on at one point outside, so we had to pause the podcast and go say hi to the bear and then come back. Yeah, it was epic. Yeah.
I would not say hi to the bear. Just telling. I'm glad we're here at Laake.
It was a great bear. It was a great bear. It was a great bear.
Tanya Acevedo. I'm the Chief Information Officer for CapMetro in Austin, Texas. Previously, I've served as CIO for Travis County, also in Austin. And in Houston, I had the opportunity to serve as the Chief Technology Officers for the airports.
And you were in the county.
And Orange County as a program manager for Orange County and Florida. I did a stint with Miami-Dade College as their CIO about 4 years ago.
Awesome. Kendra?
Hi, I'm Kendra Ketchum. I'm the Vice President and CIO at the University of Texas in San Antonio. And I've been at the university about 6 years now. I came down from the University of North Texas, where I was the CTO for about 5 years. I've spent about 26 years in higher education, working in technological areas and fields. And I think really looking back on my career and pivoting from the military, which was healthcare, it's landed me in a good spot now because, as you've heard the news, UTSA is now merging with the Health Science Center. And so I'm going back in time, I think, to become familiar again with all of the health information systems. So it's been a great ride. I love San Antonio. It's a beautiful city and just love being here. Thank you, guys.
And excited. This is several times we've now been to San Antonio. This has turned into like the hot spot. I don't know what it is. So 2023, you hosted us. So we didn't do any video recording, but we did all these kind of private roundtables and everything at UTSA.
Yeah, at the School of Data Science. That was right after we had just opened that new building. And so that's where our cyber operations sits as well. So it was a great experience.
Got to see the tour of the SOC. And then last year, Educause happened to be here. So we'll link to that one in the show notes.
Yeah, that was a great episode. I'm glad you edited, for sure.
Awesome. Kerrica?
Kerrica Laake. I'm the Chief Information Officer for the City of Austin. A longtime City of Austin employee. I've been there 33 years. I started as an intern in college, and it's a big city. You move around, you do a lot of different things. I spent 28 years at the electric utility, and since then I have been with the central IT agency for the city, communication and technology management, first as a deputy CIO, and then for the last couple of years as the CIO when the guy at the end of the couch retired.
I love that. I said this on the last podcast, but I have never met a CIO who was once an intern at the age to rise. That is just, I mean, I'm sure if you see the interns today, just the nostalgia has to be incredible. So we're going to kick off with Chris over here. So you've been on both sides of the table, hiring as a CIO and now advising with Freeit. I'm curious, what specific qualities do you look for when identifying future technology leaders? And how has that perspective evolved since your time at the City of Austin?
For me, it's two of my core values are integrity and accountability. So I look for that in any leader, and frankly, any employee, but in particular leaders, they've got to really lead with integrity. And then accountability for me is just huge. So I see a lot of cultural issues around the lack of accountability. And that goes both ways, both from the staff side and management side. In the city of Austin, when I took over for CIO, we really took a hard look at ourselves, and we held ourselves accountable to employees and let them see that every level was accountable. There was a sense that at some point you may not have had the accountability that you do at staff level. And that really destroys culture. It's really hard to lead an organization that has mistrust. So we really needed to build that trust back. And I think that's just critical. So if you lead with integrity, accountability, I think you're going to have that foundation to be able to lead a large-scale IT organization.
I think sometimes accountability can be a scary word for some folks. I had a great podcast. I interviewed one of the very rare private sector podcasts, but I'm sure you're familiar with Dave Ramsey. Sure. He runs like a $400 million organization. I actually interviewed his CTO, Brendan Woko, and all on a presentation he gave actually on accountability, which I'll link into the show notes. But integrity, accountability, kind of goes hand in hand, right? You immediately just like, you say you're going to do something, you just want to follow through, right? That's what builds trust. That's what builds that relationship. Kerrica, how are you intentionally creating similar pathways right now? So it's like workforce development a little bit, but at the city of Austin, are there any programs or specific approaches you're using to identify hidden talent at the city of Austin right now?
Formal internship programs, definitely. The city has formal internship programs. We try and participate in those as well as those that are sponsored by other agencies. And talent comes from a lot of different places. There are a lot of veteran programs that we bring in veteran interns for a period of time so that they can translate the skills that they've had in the military into our workforce. So I think that development of talent happens just throughout the life cycle of someone's career. It doesn't have to be just that intern coming in from college, or it can be earlier. We have a high school internship program that is amazing. I think this generation, they are just going to knock our socks off. Do a 6-week program with them. They come in, they have a set of problems, they develop technology around that problem, and they do a Shark Tank style presentation on here's the solution to this city problem. So start very early while they're still in school, but you also have to take into account people who are in the middle of their career, and there's still lots of innovation and development that can happen there. We just went through a titles exercise to make sure we had the right titles and had some level of career path in the organization. So all of that works together in your organizational design to make sure that you're healthy from those people entering to the workforce through the whole life cycle when people are ready to exit.
So for the kids, were you one of the sharks?
I have not been a shark, but I've heard their pre-presentations, amazing talent. Sometimes you wonder, do we have that talent right now in our organization? We do, but they are just so attuned with technology in making presentations and the curiosity. Sometimes along the way we lose the curiosity, and they have all the curiosity in the world, and you want to continue to develop that.
Next time I'm in Austin, there happens to be a high school presentation. I want to be a shark.
I'm signing you up. Signing you up.
Same. I love that.
So Tanya, we talked about this in the previous episode. Having spanned nationwide, you've been able to build several teams. Today's economic climate is tough. I think everyone off camera is talking about that. Talk about maintaining that team cohesion and motivation when resources are limited.
The most important thing is that we need to be transparent, and especially right now, and with so much unknowns because it is being shaken, right? I don't think that anybody anticipated some of the changes that we're seeing in our communities. And so it's very important to be transparent. And at CapMetro, we rely a lot on our sales tax. And if it wasn't for the transparency that our CEO and our CFO have been and have shown, say to us, that the sales tax revenue is much lower than anticipated and has been in the past. That's been preparing us for the last year. And so how that's been a downstream impact for my team and how we work together is that we have to start scaling back on some of the professional services that we're used to in better economic times. We scale back on extended staff. And so with that, we have to be more creative in how we handle our precious resources, internal resources, and how we skill across our organization and share ideas and share opportunities to be more efficient, and that work smarter mentality, and really acknowledge the fact that, yes, we're hitting some burnout and we're seeing it, but now's not the time to burn out. We've got to keep that. And so that's that leadership that comes in, and how do we get creative in celebrating our wins within our teams and acknowledging the fact that we are being spread thin, and encouraging that camaraderie and continuing that excellent customer service to the citizens that we serve, and the attention to the mission that we're delivering and how important it is.
Kendra, in our last episode at EDUCAUSE here in San Antonio, 196, you talked about hungry, humble, and kind. Love that leadership motto. First, for those who haven't heard about this, give us just a quick snippet.
It's obviously a combination of works, but Pantaloncioni's work, and it's finding that ideal team player. And so who is the ideal team player? And all the research has led to people that are, like you had mentioned, curious. That curiosity is bred because they want to learn. And so when you see those people come into your ecosystem and your stratosphere, it's investing in that, doubling down and saying, okay, they're hungry, they're humble, they're kind. Now let's polish them. What can we do internally to give them a trajectory to polish them so that they actually go, as a student would in matriculating through their program, let them matriculate through our service line, or learn the engineering skills. They may not have the best technical skills in the drawer. Those are things that can be taught and learned, but behaviors and how we treat people, and those things are ingrained in us with value systems, right? And so when you find hungry, humble, and kind, you're already tapping into a resource that's going to deliver. Now, just because they're hungry, humble, and kind does not mean you have to do things to keep them hungry, humble, and kind. So that's that intentional leadership. That's giving them that guidance, that direction. And I often use the analogy of a ship. It's you're guiding this. They are leaning into the direction of which you're guiding. Make mistakes. And when I make a mistake, they will know about it, because I want them to learn as we make this mistake together, because that's when mistakes don't happen twice. And so to encourage that hungry, you can't turn around and discipline, or, oh, you can't do that, no testing and no dev and no learning any of that right now, it's just operations, and you got that immediately goes against what you just set up, right? And so that keeping that curiosity there is, and it's a motto you've heard me use before, is fail fast, pivot faster. And that's the expectation. But it takes the leader to set that pace and tone so that I am now safe. Back to what you had mentioned about trust. If you were to look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, trust is at the very bottom, okay? The very top is results. And then there's communication, obviously, all of those things in between. But those two things, to get to results, if you don't have the foundation of trust, and you can't get that by just, I call it that seagull leadership. You've seen it where they come in, they're just, let me fly back out. That is not the kind of leader that is demonstrating those characteristics to lead a hungry, humble, kind team. Now, I also say don't mistake kindness for weakness. And so that's an important thing too, is because you can learn together. Back to accountability. Accountability doesn't know anybody's name. And if I hold myself to that same accountability, teams mirror us, folks. They do. Then they mirror your next line down and your next line down. And so if that mirror is reflecting what the leader is setting as that North Star, they're going to mirror that. And here's where it gets really interesting, because that's just in IT. That's just us working in technology. And I always tell people, it's not the widgets, folks. You want to transfer, it's the people. The success of any org is the people. So now we take that and we amplify it sideways in our org, because that's where the problems usually happen, right? It's Joe's a manager here, Sally's a manager in that line over there, different departments, different divisions, but they need Sally to do something so that they can test something here. And if they can't communicate and collaborate, we got a problem. It's usually in the form of egos, bravados, and blocks, right? So what we try to do now is run that parallel in our org. That means me and the cabinet leaders are treating each other the same way and mirroring that in our org, so now their leaders are starting to mirror them. Culture will trump your strategy all day long. And if you don't focus on that first, you can spend 700 pounds of effort to get to a place that just is halfway of what you wanted it to be. So that's why the world doesn't exist in those orgs, and it's often in technology teams that are commodities. They're not looked at as resources. The demand's still coming in, even in tight times. So how do we take them out of the commodity mindset? It's ownership. I want to own the outcome of this. That's accountability. That's integrity. That's hungry. That's humble. That's I want to learn. I want to share with my partners. And so anyway, I'm passionate about it because I really feel that is, that's an area where in technology teams, and I had mentioned this in my last podcast, I will not repeat it again, but I will say those brilliant people that are mean and not necessarily ideating together and that knowledge is power, folks, that's not the case, right? That's just, we've seen them be individual successes. But if you want to go far, you go together. You want to go fast, go alone. See how they go for it.
And on the flip side, you can be very nice too and not deliver. Just focus on keeping your job rather than doing your job. And so that's that balance that you need to
ensure
the accountability and execution. Yes.
Back to that 16 personalities, and some of the teams didn't know about themselves. They were not ideating across platforms. I was asking for new ideas. We're not getting them. We brought in Pat Lynch and Chris Laping, he's part of the table group. And we did the 16 personalities and the working genius. And the working genius, basically, widget, spells out widget. It's wonder, invention, discernment, galvanizing, tenacity. So if you look at all of that, in invention, sorry, I left out the I. That together, when I walked into a meeting and they did not know what their working geniuses were, I was like, let's ideate. Come on, let's share ideas. My working genius is wonder and invention. Their working frustrations, 9 out of the 11 people in the room had a working frustration of wonder and invention because their working genius was tenacity and discernment. I immediately recognized, I was like, oh man, this is beautiful because now we know why. Now we can do actionable strategies to work through our frustrations. So now I know when I walk in that room, I'm going to frustrate them, so I need to meet them where they are. They realize if she's coming in here all ideating sunshine and Skittles, we're going to get frustrated, so they need to meet me where I'm at. And when you have people striving to meet each other where they are, a lot of beautiful things can happen.
So Kendra, have you created an app for that? An AI app for that?
No, but we need one because let's ideate and put it, hey, don't put that on. We need to keep that in the, but yeah, that would be a great.
It really would.
Because it goes back
quickly.
To, the teams, the seeds that you can plant by doing that, man, and you don't care who gets credit for it. That's the other thing. I don't care who gets, but the seeds have been planted. And in higher ed, that is our business. We generate knowledge. And if we don't share it, then that's a big problem for me. But yeah, it's good stuff.
No, I love that. There's a lot I could unpack. I'm not going to, just for time, but the fail fast, this is coaching high school basketball. As a coach, it drives you, the turnover doesn't kill you. It's the kid not getting back on defense after they turn the ball over that you're like, you just stare.
What did I just do? And he stops completely dead in his tracks, man.
And then there's the coaching point where at halftime you're like, dude, it's just next play. It's just next play. You got to get the ball out. You cannot dwell on the fact that you turned the ball over.
Back to that too, I think we all have probably learned the most from our failures. Goes back to accountability, right? The people who have held us the most accountable, man, I've learned the most from. I tell you, and that's the truth. It's on the other side of that comfortable zone of being uncomfortable where you learn.
Our team is working on a project that I've failed twice at so far. And so I'm like, if this is third time and we're going to fail at this, I don't think it can be done.
Yeah. I always say, because those people that walk in and they're usually in the boardroom and they're like, failure's not an option. Wrong. I'll prove them wrong every time because that means I'm not going to go above and beyond to ideate because it's not an option for me to do that. So I'm going to do just what I need to do to execute that because I don't want to fail. So anyway, it just creates some bad behaviors.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know how much time, Kerrica, you've had to spend, but I don't know anyone in Dallas actually, but Lisa, Kent in Houston, and then Craig here in San Antonio, I think you would love getting to know them. Like they are absolutely fantastic. I actually had when I was in Houston, I had a 3.5-hour dinner with Lisa, and we covered technology, people, relationships. Same thing with Craig, just like absolutely fantastic. And so I think where I'm going with it is she's part of all monthly breakfast.
Yeah, we were talking right beforehand about that.
We're planning now.
Yeah,
Tanya and I are planning, yeah.
It comes back to that connective tissue and then get folks at the university there too. That goes back to that, we're going to research something that's like way out there. Let's do a test lab over here. But I think those are great. I think every great city has to have those partners, public and private, and a university needs to be sitting in that stratosphere somewhere. Yeah.
my last thought, if you've ever emailed with Craig, at the bottom he has one team, one mission, which I absolutely love that. At UTSA, what was so great was Mark from Bexar County, he showed up, Evan from CPS, a lot of folks. It was just great to see the community come together, and there's just no egos in the room, and yeah, it was great. And Austin, it's got a fantastic community.
We should even look at bringing one of y'all down to ours and, hey, meet these folks, and then up to there and do a little interchanging.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got some chips on the table, City of Houston, Harris County, to come, because Craig came to Houston last year. And so it's on their turn to either come to, well, he lives in San Antonio, so he's got to come to, they got to come meet in Austin maybe, is the next meetup. Maybe at the Commodore.
Let's do it.
She got married at the Commodore.
I
just
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Kerrica, you've probably noticed I love books. So I'm bringing another book in. I know I've been bringing all these books in for the podcast, but In Extreme Ownership by Jocko and Leif Babin, the first law of combat they talk about is cover and move. So to summarize, individuals and teams must support one another, working together in order to accomplish the mission. Like, we've been talking about this. So I was curious, like, we've talked about relationships, but how do you build those across the city, both horizontally and vertically? There's
a structured way to do that, and then there's the informal is more fun. You go and you have the coffee, you have lunch. I try to reach out to directors, and we go, we meet for a coffee. We talk to each other on a personal level, and then we talk a little business. What are those things that keep them up at night? What's driving them? What are they striving for in their delivery of service for the city of Austin? So those informal relationships like that relationship building is really important. And then more formalized. So we have a business relationship management program. We assign the business relationship managers to executives across the city, and they understand their business, they understand what their requests are, they see the patterns and the trends between the different departments and try and bubble those things up to much larger city initiatives and things that we need to start planning and looking for. So having that link into the technology organization where they can always reach out. Sure, they can always reach out to me. That's not a problem. But having that BRM that's more connected to what they do on the daily is it's that critical piece so that you bridge the technology and that business component. And they feel like they're being heard and they have someone to reach out to.
How big is your leadership team that directly reports to you?
I have 3 deputies, a chief of staff, and someone in HR, someone in security.
And then those folks each have their team that bubble up.
Absolutely. And they do work, every manager does work with other managers and staff across the city. So those relationships are informal and develop over time. But we've tried to do a lot more with collaboration and sharing information recently too. So in February, we had our first ever City of Austin Technology Conference. So we invited technologists across the city for a day to collaborate, hear presentations on data and AI and what we're doing with our other digital transformation efforts. And people were just stunned by the amount of services that were offered. Sometimes people feel in their departments they have to do it all themselves, but we have this wealth of services that we could be providing in the departments. They had the opportunity to go to different kiosks and learn about the services. We had great keynotes on AI, and I guess my piece in the organization about AI. You've been a good steward of your data, then yeah, we'll have great AI. Have you been a good steward? So we had a lot of discussions just on data and data management and data hygiene so that we can get to all these great things we want to do with AI. You have to have the foundation. So we talked a lot about that and how to get there.
So I've got 2 thoughts in my head. First is, I know it might be a little biased, but do you have a favorite use case? You've got a wide portfolio across the city of Austin. Is there a particular use case you're like, I just really like that use case?
Anything that gets back down to the citizen, to the individual, the person. We did an application for our homeless strategy office, and it helped people who were experiencing homelessness. They have a place to keep their things while they go and do job interviews, right? They get to go and interact, and they don't have to keep their things in a bush or hide them. They can put them into a safe locker while they go have their interview. And the team thought they were out of space. they didn't have any more space. And we were able to write a simple application for them to say, no, you have 40% more space if you just allocate these things and make sure things are getting turned over. That's 40% more people you can help than you thought you could. So those things that actually help an individual in our community, I think are just so important.
I love that. That's a great practical example, technology touching the human side. Back to the Austin for the citywide, was there any way that you were able to package that to where, I'm thinking about Austin's so large, you've got folks in different departments. Is there any way, like basically like a private chatbot, LLM, anything to be able to go research and find information without having to?
I go back to are you a good steward of your data? And so I still feel like we're in that phase where, yes, we're exploring different use cases, AI, but we're really focused on data and analytics and making sure things are ready and actionable. Lots of discussions about, do we use the public LLMs? Do we create our own? There are probably some really good use cases. There are where a LLM will make sense, public health data, things like that. So we continue to explore and determine where we need to put our focus and our time and our energies for the city.
Exciting time. We'll have to have you come back on later, I don't know, 6 months, a year from now, and get an update, see what the city of Austin. So Chris, last podcast, I got it right here, 170, how large city CIOs are building responsive government, regional collaboration, and future talent pipelines. That was a stacked local government podcast. And we had you, Rob Lloyd, Mark Wittenberg, who's now in the city of Raleigh, and Rob was at the city of San Jose at the time, and then you were representing Austin. So you had mentioned, I actually went back, I just pulled the transcript. I didn't listen to the podcast, but I did pull the transcript. I wanted to know, what did Chris say 2 years ago? You had mentioned restructuring your leadership team and addressing the challenges of having too many interim positions. How did you create that team where teams support one another during that transition?
First, it started with communication. We asked employees how they were. So we had some third-party assessments done, really focused on culture, which I don't think happens all the time where you actually focus on culture. Usually it's the technology landscape. How are we doing? You ask customers how you're doing. But city management wanted to really take a strong look into the department and get down to every employee's opinions on what's going on to see where we could make effective change. And that led us to a good understanding of kind of where the issues were. And so we were able to start rebuilding. And again, I think it goes back to trust. We've talked about it. I think everybody's mentioned trust. So one of the things I found is the interim positions they have to happen. And a lot of it happened during the COVID time where we had a hiring freeze for almost a year. We weren't allowed to hire. So we had people move around and leave the city. And each one of those positions just got left for a year. And so you have to bring people up and you have to give them opportunities to fill these roles. And that's fantastic for that individual. But what we found is a lot of mistrust then if that person was eventually placed in the position. If they earned that spot through a competitive process, it was seen as unfair. Of course, they got the job. They were doing it for a year and a half, whatever. And I could see where that perception came from. Like, oh, of course, that's a heck of a leg up if you're doing the job to then get the job once it's posted. That's a pretty good leg up. So we really committed to turning these over much, much faster. And we put resources into HR. I actually had every position had to go through me to get approved, to get posted. So we were able to, instead of first come, first serve, we put some strategy to how we're hiring. But it just went back to that trust. They had to have some trust that we're going to do this the right way. We're going to focus on this. And then we also did some work around how we choose our interim selections, moving some interims around, giving more people more opportunity, reaching even from outside our organization. So reaching into other departments. There's a lot of IT in a big city that doesn't belong in the central IT. So we were able to pull some folks over and give them opportunity, which was really great because it also has a lot of collaboration. So a lot of times where you work in electric utility for 28 years, you have a good understanding of what happens in the city, but you've never been in the seat. So when we bring someone over, they get to see what's going on in our department, and they get to bring that back whenever they go back to their individual department. And that kind of also helped out with some of the perceptions that may have been not quite correct both ways, where maybe you thought this group doesn't do what I think they do, and it turns out they do a heck of a lot more, and you never had any idea the responsibilities. So it was actually a really great opportunity. And it all came from, again, the employee feedback and listening to what they had to say. That's where it all started.
Yeah, no, it's like marriage, right? Like communication breaks down, you're like, okay, this is the first thing we need to fix. Highly recommend the book Extreme Ownership. It is so good. It's part military history, part business, the application side. One of the stories in the beginning of the book they talk about is the Battle of Ramadi. And I actually interviewed the lead sniper, J.P. Donnell, who's featured in the book in the beginning, that reported to Jocko, episode 96. It was fantastic. I don't normally talk about kind of the sections that I group the podcast in, but I like this section a lot. Breaking through the way we've always done things, right? Like that mindset of, hey, this is just the way we've done it. This is Black Swan is coming to take you out at this point. Because if you are always thinking this is the way we've done it, that's another great book, by the way, Black Swan. It's very tough to push for innovation, push for even just change in general. And Tanya, CapMetro, pretty large organization. We've talked about this. I think I want to really hammer home the leadership approaches to specifically breaking through. You talked about the Innovation Lab in the last podcast, breaking through the mentality of this is the way we've always done it.
That's, if you're in government sector, and private sector too, can be one of the huge culture, Chris talked about it, Kendra talked about it, Kerrica talked about it, is that it will eat your strategy all day long. And culture can be as simple as, I have 5 weeks of vacation that I get every year, and so I've accumulated 3 months. Therefore, I will take 3 weeks off every 3 months, and therefore multiply that by 3 other people, and it's perfectly fine. And so the little things like that culture of, yeah, it's fine if we keep the SLAs where they need to be, and we're delivering where we need to be, but that's not, you can't do that. And so those are just an examples of how we, just because it was okay in the past, how do you move forward? And it's always a challenge. And it's especially a challenge when a new CIO goes to a new organization and gets those things. So what do you do? Do you do workshops? Do you talk about that? Do you talk about the elephant in the room? What is the single most effective way to change that culture? And because that's it. If we've always done it in the past and it's always worked, well then great. But with this evolution, it's not going to work. With AI, it's going to be a disruptor. And it's that whole, have you ever experienced that plane emergency landing? And if you haven't, literally the flight attendants will say, if you don't jump, we're going to push you. And so it makes sense because you're going to risk lives. And in your government, these can risk lives, right? If we're not doing our job, we're not delivering our services, it impacts the domino impact of it is huge. And so that's where I think you really need to get that purpose-driven public steward and focus on that within your leadership. And being stagnant is right there is the worst thing that I think that you can do. And that's why it's, as a leader, you have to focus on doing your job and not keeping it, because a lot of leaders that don't press their teams to succeed and change culture when it's uncomfortable won't succeed in these jobs.
So in the last podcast, I'd asked Kerrica, she was hiring an AI coordinator position. I've actually asked a lot of CIOs behind the scenes, because right now is this huge transformation. You have your existing staff, and I'm actually going to meet with Infotech next week with their research group, as it's funny, I'm known for the podcast, but often will research topics that other CIOs are talking about in my private community. So I just jot down, what are you thinking about? How can I go talk about this? And then I go pull people around and research it. And this role is, like, in general, pretty fascinating, because you're getting the data cleaned up right now.
Yeah.
Fantastic start. And what does it look like what does the staff look like? How do you train people for something that they've been in a job for 30 years? It's tough, right? I worked when I was young, my first job, I worked at a property management software company called Yardi Systems, which is cool. So I learned SQL, which I didn't know first day. I didn't even know what a web server or a database was, but team leads drawing this on the whiteboard, and I'm just like mind blown right out of college. Yeah.
So that's so awesome that you said that, because I think all of us are seeing this transformation in our orgs. Here's just some facts too that I had researched. By 2030, we're going to reach super intelligence, right? So AI is capable of doing these individual tasks, right? And there's not a lot of beautiful tasks, right? They're just individual tasks. So when that happens, If we're not now repurposing our workforce to level up and be more skilled architects and engineers and understand that those individual tasks are going to be done by our automation orchestration stacks, period. So recognizing that, I think one of the things I stepped into, everyone's, oh, AI is good. I called it a hype cycle. I looked at the hype cycle of how long it's going to last. Look, what are we talking about? Because cloud was a hype cycle. Oh my gosh, cloud. And then everyone went to cloud. Everyone came back from the cloud. So I wanted to lean into it with a framework. So we tried to create a UTSA AI factory framework. If you're going to bring us a use case, governance is at the very beginning, going back to data integrity, quality, data veracity, all of those things, right? So your use case has to demonstrate all through the stack using our resources, open source and in-house, to secure our data. Again, we're a state agency, right? And so we have to ensure those controls and security are in place. But that framework should help guide what we're going to do on the next. So an example of an exciting piece of AI that I want some chatbots that are human. And you guys have heard of digital human. Yeah, digital humans right now are, and so I keep thinking to myself, imagine the old days of we walk up to a kiosk, imagine if you interacted with somebody.
I'm going to jump right in. We are deploying for our paratransit. You have to become eligible to get our paratransit service. It's very specialized, and it's Uber for special needs, paratransit. And so our AI assistant that we're rolling out sounds just like a human. It's not Siri. It is amazing, and it interacts so human-like that I don't think that anyone's going to know unless they start getting in true arguments with our agent. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah. I wanted to, looking at how you can even bring that into your in-house, going back to what you had mentioned. You guys remember the days of SharePoint. Like you going up, where is everything, right? You walk in, you're onboarding, you spend 2 weeks trying to learn where everything is at, right? Imagine a world where that's gone. You come in and we want to roll out Rowdy, right? So Rowdy, we're the road runners. So roll out Rowdy where I can be sitting anywhere and my AI, it's agentic AI is what it is, obviously using the agents, but looking at agentic AI and how we could deploy that small scale. I don't have to consume a lot of resources. Now I'm protecting my data. It's similar to Copilot. It's going to change the way interacting within. I want to see, call centers. You spend how much time looking for a document, or you spend how much time actually delving in. I call that technical debt. A lot of people don't, but I think anytime I'm having to leave what I'm doing and jump into something else, I'm acquiring debt going back and forth between these two worlds because I have to go back and reread or and our engineers are doing that daily. So let's look at how AI can do that transformation for that small individual task, level them up. Now they're strategizing. And you'll find out engineers, and I say this because I came up through that world, we love lists. We love to do it all and be done. Imagine the day where the engineer's now working like an architect, okay? I go back to chocolate and peanut butter. Chocolate did not know peanut butter was going to taste good until they came together and it's, oh my gosh, it's a Reese's, right? That is the style. When you see these engineers start talking, they're like, your thing can do this and yours can do that. And they're like, whoa, we just invented something. Man, that's beautiful. And that's going back to making it a safe word to do that, to innovate, just like you said with AI. But I would love to even work collaboratively with both of you all on some kind of project with students or anything. I would love to see that happen. So that connective tissue is important.
This one is going to blow people's mind. Like calling and having this, it is so human, and they know who you are because we already have our system program, so they know the person calling for service, and just to have that interaction, it's
going to transform healthcare. It's going to transform everything. And so now going back to what I originally said, it may be that buzzword sitting out there on the periphery right now. But if we are not learning and seeing what we could do intentionally with responsible AI, fair, equity, like all of those things better be looked at, folks, because we're going to create a situation of haves and have-nots. And so you have to be very intentional on that responsible AI piece so governing your data's next, then your outcomes. Right?
So is there going to be a dedicated position, like a chief AI officer?
I think so.
I don't know.
Your digital officers were those folks now.
Digital officers.
CDOs were running that. You'll see CAs.
The skill set, though, and needs to make sure that person has that breadth of understanding of all your business processes.
Oh yeah, you can automate a bad thing. You can
Right.
speed up failure quick if you automate a bad thing. So
And then you got to watch that egos, because if your ego gets involved, all of a sudden you're just doing chatbots, and that doesn't add value. But
one thing I will say is, and we should all probably learn from that use case. Many years ago, Dell went private, then public, but they outsourced the one thing that made them successful, and they brought it back in, and it was customer service. You can't put a price on a peace of mind of your brand if you're not able to deliver that simple, basic customer service. So that's one thing. When you go into orgs and they start talking about, oh, giving your first tier to an AI chatbot, man, it better be humanized, and it better have multiple LLMs sitting behind it to power it.
that's what we're doing. We're
Yeah.
still testing it, but every time we test it, I'm like, this is blowing my mind.
Amazing.
This is the era, we were just talking about inside the collaboratory. This is the era now where it used to be back then where you have Microsoft Office on your resume. You're like proficient in Microsoft Office. You're now proficient in AI, Gen AI. Yeah, having those conversations. This is the craziest part.
It is so disruptive.
Yeah. I think I even told you a while back, or told him on the last podcast, my end of year review. Normally I report through the president, and in cabinet, we have to write these big, long, higher ed loves words. And they're like 65 pages of this, everything we've done. And so our action plans and everything. So I was like, I want to build a home LLM model using law. I brought it in. Nossos and I sat down. We started adding things in, started doing it. And all of my data points were added. And it spit out this beautiful 32-page, just all images, all of it, right? So I had both documents, the one I had done, the one AI. And I go to my president from and I slide that one over there, and he's like, this is phenomenal. I was like, here's the almost 70 page one that I had to actually take about 70 hours just in the last month. I said, so think about where you would rather have my innovation and my mindset and my vision on a report, or let this tool do it for me with my data. And he was like, done, boom. So that was pretty cool. But going back to use case, like it sounded a little selfish at the time because I didn't want to write 70 more pages, but yeah, it's what we all do, right? Technology wants to simplify things.
Yeah, this is just a personal use case, but Claude has got a direct integration with Gmail and Google Calendar. So what I did was, you can now just with the click of a button, and it gives you pre-made prompts. It combed every email I'd ever sent in my calendar, came back and told me, and gave me beautiful charts, told me, when you travel for events, you don't work out as much. In fact, you should probably work out a little bit more. But then when you get back into town, you're working out 2 to 3 times per week. And then it gave me this chart, and based on seasons. And then it showed me, you have event seasons here and here. And that was just for working out. Then it came back and was like, you've emailed these. I didn't ask it, but just, these are the top 10 people you email the most. Here are these relationships you have. And it goes through this whole thing. I'm sitting here going, oh my goodness, this is.
We don't even waste time on meeting.
Imagine that in the human-like avatar that's going to start, you're going to
Yeah, that goes back to digital humans. I would like to see that service desk where I could be like, and Jane AI was one of them. Jane's really cool, but kind of creepy. I'm going to be creepy. I looked at it and it was creepy. I was like, oh my gosh, she looks like a person. But
so what's funny is we talk about privacy in a lot. So it's funny how, even for myself, I'm guilty of this. Take TSA. Oh, you want my eyes? You want my fingers? I can go through the airport. The benefit's just so great. I'm like, you want the whole hand?
I can still tell you stories about that. It's like everybody, when we first put that in airports, everyone's, oh, heck no. No way. Especially your facial biometrics. Yeah. No way. As soon as it sped up the line.
I was at LAX. It slammed. And they've got a clear-handed TSA. Let me just scan your eyes. There's one person in line. I'm like, all day.
Take my eyeballs.
Yeah.
Make it easy for me. I don't want to wait either.
Chris, I just want to wrap up with you, because you've been pretty quiet on this side of the couch. I knew you wanted to let the ladies have their time, but wanted to hear from you just as we wrap up, just around how you view Freeit data and helping these agencies. You've got that very business partner-like perspective, both being at the city and now. I'd love to hear where you see that relationship going.
Oh, it's been great. Being a city CIO and a utility CIO, it was awesome to be able to focus. And I had a city. It's a large city. It's a lot of departments to manage, and there's a lot going on in a city, which is a lot of fun to get to know how that operates organizationally and how these things happen in a city. That was really great. And I was a little worried going to the private sector, I would lose some of that sense of service. But in the organization I'm in now, where we do so much with local government, education, large government too, it's been great to utilize all those skills that I used to use for one city. I get to walk around and take that to towns and counties and cities and the states all over the place. And it's been really great. And it's been a learning experience for me also, getting out and really talking to other CIOs and these IT leaders. It's good and humbling a bit to know what's going on and the problems you knew exist in your organization. It exists elsewhere. You're not the only one that's going through stuff. Everybody's got things they're really good at and things that they don't want to talk about. And they want to highlight the things that they're doing fantastic, like they should. And they're still working on some things over here that aren't. They're not going to make the papers and they're not headline innovative stuff. We also have this stuff over here. So it's been really great just understanding what's going on out there and then being a part of that and helping out. And in particular, there's a lot of resource constrained folks out there. The smaller counties, the smaller towns that they struggle. They have zero resources to get things done. And when I thought about it, they really had to do the exact same things I had to do as CEO for the city of Austin. We had to do certain things you've got to make sure you do. You have to do all the same stuff at smaller scale, but with almost no resources. And it's amazing the inventiveness and creativity that I've seen to get things done, because they still get it done, regardless of what's offered to them. And that's a lot of collaboration. It's a lot of working with their partners and their vendors, like really leaning on them. Like, I need some support here. Yeah. You can't just come in and tell me something and walk away. I really need you to be at the table. So that's been really great to see that and work with them. It's been really great.
Yeah, no, that if I was in a smaller town, smaller city, didn't have those resources, I think probably one of the first things I would do is, if I was in local government, for example, I would be building relationships with Kerrica, with Craig, because access to resources, but also influence. And there are other intangibles where you're a smaller city. I don't know, you might be able to get a cybersecurity hookup. You might be able to get some additional. You can talk to Kendra, she's got a SOC. There are other very interesting collaborative ways where, going back to, we talked about creativity, right? This is sometimes an abundance of resources can actually be a problem. You stop thinking.
That's why certain smaller groups are more nimble. Their lack of resources creates that ability to be nimble.
I could probably hang out all day with you all, but you're all fantastic. Thank you for coming on the Public Sector Show by Tech Table. Love the conversation today.
Thank you so much, Joe. It's been great. And I want to connect after even to stay connected, because this is a great group. Knowledge think tank here.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Joe Tossi from TechTables.com, and you're listening to the Public Sector Show by Tech Tables. This podcast features human-centric stories from public sector CIOs, CISOs, and technology leaders across federal, state, city, county, and higher education. You'll gain valuable insights into current issues and challenges faced by top leaders. Through interviews, speaking engagements, live podcast tour events, we offer you a behind-the-mic look at the opportunities top leaders are seeing today. And to make sure you never miss an episode, head over to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and hit that follow button and leave a quick rating. Just tap the number of stars that you think this show deserves.